So is the Sony ZV-E10 the best budget mirrorless camera for content creators or for use as a webcam? Well, you're seeing it right now, in fact, but there are a few issues and I'm going to get into those in the next few minutes, so let's go. So first, I'm going to be filming this entire video with the Sony ZV-E10 camera. Now, this camera is the spiritual successor to the Sony ZV-1, which released back in May 2020. Now, the ZV-1 is basically a point-and-shoot camera with the ability to have clean HDMI out and streaming video over its USB connection. Now, I don't personally have a Sony ZV-1, so I'll defer to the statements of others who did review it, and all seem to report the challenges with the ZV-1 are kind of the lack of its interchangeable lenses, and that it has a smaller 1-inch sensor, but it has some upsides too. It's got a built-in ND filter and also better and internal image stabilization. Then about a year and a half later, in August 2021, Sony released the ZV-E10, and it shares a similar 3-capsule microphone and also has that included dead cat windscreen. It has the same streaming video output over USB, doesn't require a capture card if you want to go native over its USB connection, but that's where the similarities end. You know, the ZV-E10 has the larger APS-C sensor like others in the Alpha 6000 and 5000 series, and importantly, it also allows for Sony E-mount interchangeable lenses. In fact, what you're seeing here is a Sigma 30mm autofocus lens that's set to ISO 320 and F1.4, and that's giving me this nice blurry background that you can kind of see behind me here. And the other nice thing is that it takes the same batteries or dummy batteries as the Alpha 5000 and 6000 series as well. It's that standard NP-FW50 size. So if you're already invested in the Sony ecosystem like me, this is going to be a straight swap. And you can get away with just buying the body only for about $700 if you already have lenses. Now, if you're filming indoors using a fixed camera mount or a tripod like I do, it kind of negates the ZV-1's built-in ND filter and image stabilization, and it would seem like an obvious choice to upgrade if you're on an A5000 or 6000 series camera, but is it really? So why don't we go into the issues, or surprises as I like to call them, that I've personally had with the ZV-E10. You know, first, it's going to be replacing my Sony A5000, which isn't a bad camera. I've actually done a full video on this, you know, at the link that you see above, and it's the least expensive APS-C camera with potential for HDMI out in a clean way. That means that you can actually make it have clean HDMI out, but you have to do a little bit of work to do that, and you can find that video at the link above. Now, in my case, I'm just bringing that camera into my work office so I can have a decent setup there, as well as at home here. And yes, that means that my Elgato face cam, and you know, from the video I just did, which is also linked above, is now in my drawer. So cue the world's smallest violin. So let's get to the issues. So first issue, the USB streaming mode is only 720p. So even though the USB port on the camera is actually USB 3.1 Gen 1, that means it's capable of 5 gigabits per second transfer speed. That's gonna be more than capable of being able to transmit a 1080p or 4K video even at 60 Hertz. However, it's only sending 1280 by 720 or 720p at 30 frames per second. Now, this might not be a deal breaker in and of itself, but the other problem here is that your computer probably won't have enough amperage from its USB port to keep it charged. That means you can't just set it and forget it like you could do if you're using a Sony Alpha with a dummy battery and a capture card. Now, here's a sample of the footage from USB just to compare what you're seeing now. So this is the Sony ZV-E10 directly out of the USB-C connection. I'm using my Shure MV7 microphone that's just out of frame over here. And you can see what it looks like at 720p coming straight from the USB-C connection, no capture card, right from the camera. It is, however, powered through the continuous power dummy battery, but didn't need a Cam Link or anything else to connect it. Downside is it's 720p. Now in my case, my primary camera use is for work meetings, and if you're on occasional calls like via Microsoft Teams or Zoom, you'll need to go through the ritual, basically of getting everything set up, then doing your call, then powering everything off. Now, if you're on pretty much non-stop calls, kind of 9 to 5 like I am every day of the week, this routine will get to be too much of a hassle and you'll probably want another webcam as your standard go-to and just use that ZV-E10 then for special calls or online events or content creation. Now I have mine set up to never power down. It's also hooked up to micro HDMI using an Elgato Cam Link 4K USB capture device. I've also got the Shure MV7 as you can see here. And aside from the occasional autofocus test, I never need to mess with it. So let's move on then to issue number 2. Now that issue is overheating. So the first day I unboxed my ZV-E10, everything was going great for the first couple of hours. Then I got a little on-screen temperature warning icon, and soon after that, the camera shut off. Now the funny thing for me and the irony here is that a lot of people actually warned me about overheating issues with my older Sony A5000 and A5100 cameras, and those cameras actually never overheated. Now I believe that issue only happens when the camera is recording and writing to its internal SD card, but in preview mode, when you're going over HDMI like you would be doing for streaming or for use as a webcam replacement, this actually never happened to me. Now I might be one of the lucky ones here, 2 out of 2 in my case, but the ZV-E10 overheated in my case in the first 2 hours. Now there's a solution in power settings to turn auto power off temp from standard, its default setting, to high. But that seemed really crazy to me and like a recipe probably for long-term hardware failure. So at that point, I was initially thinking, should I just return this camera and stick with my A5000? But you know, after a bit of research and a few YouTube videos that I watched, I started to feel better about changing the power off temp setting and changing that to high as opposed to its default standard. And it's been running like that for around 2 weeks so far. And while that sounds like a long time, you know, my A5000 probably ran for a year straight in its longest stretch. The only thing that would power it down would be occasional power outages for my house during windstorms, which happen maybe once per year. And that would cycle its power off and back on, obviously, because there was no power to the dummy battery. And if anything weird, by the way, does happen from overheating on the ZV-E10, I'll be the first to stick it in the comments below. So those are just my 2 primary issues. Now, for issue number 3, there's a collection of just small niggly things that I want to share with this camera. So first, the microphone's dead cat. You can see it right here. Well, actually, when you take off the furry cover, so the way that it mounts is to the hot shoe. And so if I put the cover on it, but this is what it looks like. There we go, now it's in focus. And that basically means the expandability from that hot shoe, which is a great feature, means that that's gone. So you'll need to use a camera frame if you decide to use its built-in microphone outside and still need a hot or a cold shoe for it. Now that said, related to the microphone, the ZV-E10 does actually support external microphones over its 3.5mm input jack, and it also has a 3.5mm headphone output jack, which is great. Now, the other thing that I noticed, which is a little bit strange, or was strange for me, the background blur button. This is a great capability on the top. It changes, what it does is it changes the attached lens's aperture to the lowest value that it can, along with the ISO, because a lot of time those 2 settings go hand in hand. You know, but it's not doing any digital processing to blur the background. Now that might be a good thing from, you know, a purist point of view, but it also means if you're using the kit lens, you're only gonna get an f3.5 aperture at minimum, which I don't even consider bokeh or blurry in most cases, unless you're taking outdoor shots with a lot of depth behind you. Now, anything in your home or work office that's behind you with f3.5 or using the kit lens is going to be in focus essentially. So you'll need a lens like the one I'm using right now to go down to, say, f1.4 like you can see here, maybe up to f2.5 at the high end if you want that blurry background, you know, in your spare room or in your office. Again, this one is a Sigma 30mm f1.4 autofocus lens, and I want to do a video on that at some point in the future as well. Now finally, the plastic body does feel a little bit cheap when it's in your hand compared to even the A5000, but once it's mounted and you've decided to kind of set it and forget it, it's fine. You know, that kind of is out of sight, out of mind. Visibly, it looks almost identical to an A5000 or an A6000 series. That is unless you install the dead cat on top like all the pictures have it from Sony. So those are my issues and also observations from the Sony ZV-E10. And that leaves me then with the main question of would I recommend it? And I'm going to say in this case, yes. So even though I shoot in 1080p, I do want the option occasionally or in the future to shoot 4K. And the next camera in the Sony lineup that can do that is the A6400, which goes for about $200 more than this one. Otherwise, you'll have to go with something like a Canon M200, which by the way is a little bit less expensive than even this one. And it's also a great vlogging camera, but the things it doesn't support are kind of deal breakers for me. A, my lenses won't work with it, and B, it doesn't work with external microphones or have that headphone output jack like you'd want to have in this case, like you've got with the ZV-E10. So yes, for a new and budget camera, the ZV-E10 has the expandability and the features to be future-proof, at least for a while, and will be a good investment or upgrade if you have an older compact Alpha and a few Sony-compatible accessories lying around. So I hope this helps you with your search for your next content creation or amazing webcam decision. If you like this video and got value from it, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, thank you so much for watching.